Now seems like as good a time as any to talk about the new brush designer. As well as stickers, you've got another brush designer in ArtRage 5 now, and it's very easy to set up brush heads. You just paint a small image like I'm doing here. I set up a document to 150 pixels square. Doesn't have to be square, it will take other shapes. Square's quite easy to work with. And I've set the background to black because you need to paint back to front on this. I think it works with alpha channels or something like that. So you paint white on black, and I set up a document with a black background, and now just on another layer I'm painting some splodges actually with the oil brush. So nothing very careful. I'm just going to see what it does when I get it in the brush designer. And then I export the image file to a folder I've already created with some other. You can see brush heads I've already made. There's all sorts of shapes and blobs. But what I do is I then close that layer, not close that layer down, but make that layer, turn that layer off and create a new layer, and then paint some more splodge. So what I'm creating is a file with a lot of different brush heads in it, and then I export that image, and this way you can keep all your brush heads together in an easy to find file system. Now I'll try with but why not the pen tool now? I'll make some splodge with a pen tool. I'm making sort of splatty images, brush head sort of things. You'll see once we get into Brush Designer that you have a lot of controls to do things with this. I'm exporting that one. See how quickly I'm doing this? This is speeded up 1.5 times, but it took me about 5-10 minutes in total. Still painting white on black. I've turned down the smoothing a bit. Change the thickness of the brush to get some different marks. Now you wouldn't, I don't know, you might not think of this as a standard brush head. And I'm softening it a bit with the palette knife tool. I'll give it a bit more interest. Make it a little less harsh. Saving it again. Now I'm just loaded up a standard window sized canvas just so I can try these out a bit. Now here is the brush designer. Get to it through tools like that. Go to load head and then go to where you stored your brush head and then try it. Now that might not be what you expected from that an original splat, but if you space out the dabs a bit you get that. And you've got controls over opacity, jitter, which kind of randomizes their placement, rotation jitter, which randomizes their rotation. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Just try the settings. But you've got more than one set of settings, as you'll see in a minute. This is the first set of settings about the brush head. Trying a different grain. Grain is something else. You see you've got two icons at the top there, head and grain. You can change what is giving the grain behind it. You could use paper grain pictures or whatever. I'm just using another brush head to see how that goes. When I save it as a preset, you can save it as a preset. I've saved it to the toolbox at the same time. I'm going to create a new toolbox just of splatty marks so I can load them quickly. Saves you having to go sorting through all long lists of brushes to find them. See, now I'm just going through the same sort of processes with a different brush head, trying different textures for the grain. You'll be surprised at how some of them react. because with so many settings that you're controlling, you can get a big variety of marks just out of one brush head. I'm playing with tapering the tail and the opacity tail as well. And smoothing will, well, it does the same as it does for the other tools that smoothing comes on into it. It smooths out your strokes, which it's good for some things, but I don't always want it. I only have limited amounts of smoothing on pencil and stuff like that, just to compensate for how digital line that can tend to jitter. Now I'm saving another preset with a different name. I'm not saving the size, but I am saving it to the toolbox. Go over it again. Another brush head. Should try. Yeah, no, that's quite organic. That was one that had little tendrils coming out of that I made with the pen tool, and then softened the middle of it so that it looks almost like organic bits of pollen or something. So that's what I've called it, splat pollen. Give them names that mean something to you, so you can find them easily. Same again, doing some different marks. See, with the texture, with the grain turned up, it makes it much more organic looking. I spelled sponge wrong then. See, I'm narrating this after the fact. Done it without a P. A songe. In a way that makes it more memorable, I suppose. And that's it without the grain. See, quite a bit different. A different effect. So I'll save that as a different preset. Turn the grain back up. That's me saving it. I'm just saving it again with the sponge spelt correctly. Things like that bother me. I'll probably do one more. See, I've already built up quite a little collection of brushes to use. There won't be that much difference in them, but they'll give me enough to play with. And just because they're presets saved as in a toolbox doesn't mean you go back and tweak the settings as you go. They'll just revert back to the settings that you have if you don't save them like that. See how changing the grain grain size has really made an effect. If you turn it down to nothing, you hardly get anything. As I said, the best way to do this is to make some brush heads and get in there and play with it. Find out what works for you. Play with the settings. Take note of things like follow stroke. Oh, I'm lying. I am doing another one. I thought it was the last one. No, there's one more going here. It's quite a fluffy looking one. With the grain turned up, that looks kind of more fluffy, more tufty. I'll call it something like that. Tufty fluff. See, I'll remember that name because that's kind of what I'll use it for. See, this is addictive. It's a bit more fibrous. Can change the tool size. In there, you see the dab size. Sorry, how it reads the brush head. All these controls have some effect. Quite like that one. Not quite sure what I'll use it for yet, but see, if you just follow stroke, it does that. So I need a bit more jitter off the actual line that you're painting than that. A bit more variation. I find that'll be more useful for sort of blocking in tonal areas and that kind of thing that you want texture, sort of fluffy texture to. Not sure we necessarily do in our painting, but I will try them out in it anyway. I'm just tweaking the settings to something I like. then saving it as a preset, and there we go. Right, and now I'm saving that toolbox with a name I will remember in a place I know, so I can load it later and it'll just be there whenever I want it. Now just trying out, see some of the brushes, see what they come out like. That's not too bad. There's got enough variation to, there's some interesting things there. Quite organic, some of them, but then the marks are quite sort of splatty and organic. That was the point. Just cleared that so I could try some of the other brushes. Some of them look sort of wetter than others. That looks sort of wetter than the other one because it hasn't got so much grain. That's quite a nice sort of mottledy colour effect, because I did set it up so that it would give a slight colour variation as it goes. So it's great for organic type things and textures and things like that, but what about more regular patterns? Why not use it for that kind of thing? That's how it's set up at the moment as I left it. Now I've done another simple brush head, and if you leave those settings then you get a similarly organic look. So you can use regular shapes to make a more organic texture. It looks kind of hairy. By changing the settings you get quite different response. Again, still looks hairy, but the brush will react to, you need to use different dabs when you're applying it. The way I would apply that would be almost as though I was brushing someone's hair, like following the contour, and that would be quite handy. I think I will save that. I think I will use that. Yeah, giving it a name Furry 1. But you'll notice you've got controls at the bottom over size, over the size of the dab that you're applying. I've made it smaller, and I will probably save that as well, because you get a better idea of what you're doing then. And I just think that'll be useful to have it in two different sizes, because it gives a sort of a different impression. Will react differently with paper texture, that kind of thing. So let's make another brush head, shall we? We're going to see how rotating it does. So I haven't actually made another brush head. All I've done is altered the brush head that I've got. Saved it with a slightly different name. And then when you get back into the brush designer, load that brush head. Again, at the moment that looks hairy. But remember, we've been tweaking the settings. So if you go back to follow the stroke completely, it looks more like plaited hair or rope at the moment. I can see with a bit of tweaking this could be something that's quite useful again, but for a more controlled sort of stroke, something a little less organic. Still natural looking, but though I am sort of, even though I'm narrating this after the fact, I'm sort of trying to see what I'm doing. I'm tweaking the spacing and the little amounts of glitter and how much to follow the stroke, because all these have a big impact on exactly how the brush works. And I'm finding that I'm not being able to control it quite as well as I hoped I would, and I think the reason for that is because the brush head itself isn't quite symmetrical. So I'm placing it better within the brush head frame, and I think that will allow me to have a little more control over it. That's better. See, you're getting more regular patterns than that now. Now I think that was the kind of thing I was after. That could be used for sort of knitted textures, all that kind of thing. So yes, I will use that. I've saved that one. And now why not combine it, if you're talking about patterns, why not combine it with using symmetry? Back in making a brush head, I'm going to paint just a quick pattern and see what I can do with that. Slightly oriental, I suppose, because of the spots. to be Chinese-y. Saved it with an appropriate name. Again, save things with names that you will remember. Don't copy any names I use. Load the brush head. We want it to follow the stroke completely. And straight away I'm thinking that's something I could probably use. Yep. It comes out as a sort of regular pattern that you can do something with. If you make the dab spacing closer together, you get something quite different. And if you start adding glitter in, not quite sure what I'd use it for, but in fact I probably won't save that one. But the brush head is there. Once you've saved the brush head, it's there whenever you want to have a play with it. If you decide you want to use it for something else. I'm not really getting anything I can see would be useful for me. Just playing with the different settings. See if I can get anything to come out of it. I think the follow the stroke seems to be the most important one for me. I'll probably just play with the dab spacing slightly. Also try changing the tool size a little bit. Just get a different impression on things. You see, this is all about playing and finding out what works for you. And as you begin to understand what the controls do, you'll have much more control over the brushes you create. I've just added a little bit of colour variation and made the dabs a little closer together. It's not dissimilar to the first one, but I think I will find that little bit of variation quite useful, so I will save that as a preset on its own. And then we'll maybe try another quick brush head, just something very regular, in a box or something like that. But you'll actually get a better understanding of what's going on with the dabs. Ooh, that's too big. And I'm not sure if I want the variation in stroke. Use the pen for this one. Might do that with a pencil. Something a little bit more straightforward. Yes. One the other way. Yeah, that'll do. It's just to show what's going on with the dabs, the dab spacing, and the following the stroke, that kind of thing, really. Save it, load it, and then just start. Yeah, you see, it looks much more like some kind of geometric exercise, like a spirograph or something like that now. This is the, I'm hoping you can see the potential for making all sorts of really fascinating and useful brushes in this. It's a really great addition to ArtRage.